Well, the Montreal Canadiens stunk today, and I don't really want to talk about that game. There is little reason to talk about the Montreal Canadiens' loss against the Tampa Bay Lightning because I think with the way the Canadiens were playing, a lot of us were expecting them to barely hang on before the Four Nations face-off break. And to be fair, there were some goals scored. I mean, Brendan Gallagher has been getting back on the score sheet, which is good to see. You like to see Habs veteran guys going out there and scoring points, like David Savard, like Mike Matheson. But at the end of the day, it's a 5-3 loss for the Habs heading into a much-needed break for this hockey team. With this in mind, I wanted to talk about some of the extra roster notes following the loss against Tampa Bay, as well as go over some extra updates on potential contract extensions and guys that could be floating around the world of Habs land. Sure, while engagement for the Montreal Canadiens is at an all-time low for the season, we still have to talk about these notes since there are some interesting things that went down. Take a look at this. The Montreal Canadiens announced they have assigned Owen, Beck, and Logan Mailloux to the Laval Rocket. This was shortly after the game today against Tampa Bay. So Beck, who was playing, is now down in Laval. Mailloux, who was not playing today, is also down in Laval. And I saw a few people going out there and saying, oh, why are they doing this? Why are they sending Owen Beck down there to the AHL? He's been pretty alright for the Montreal Canadiens, one of the more effective players, you can say. And this really does boil down to two things. Firstly, it's cap savings. Obviously, having guys up and down, you can save some money if they're down a little bit more. And then secondly, it's opportunity. Owen Beck and Logan Mailloux have nothing to do with the Montreal Canadiens whilst the team is on break for the Four Nations face-off. Meanwhile, the Laval Rocket, who have been very strong, they are continuing their play throughout the next few weeks here. So Owen Beck and Mailloux going down to Laval to help out the AHL team and add some extra depth. I say help out the AHL team as if the Laval Rocket haven't been freaking fantastic this season, but still good to surround these guys with a winning environment, right? Speaking about winning environments, Jakub Dobeš today in the Tampa Bay game ended up getting pulled after the first period. Montembeault came out and manned the crease for the rest of it. And there have been conversations on social media like this from Habs Link that I wanted to illuminate on this video as well. It's time to send Dobeš back down. It's not his fault, but his confidence is going to be absolutely demolished playing behind this team. And subsequently, there was another post made by Habs Chronicle asking this, hey, Cayden Primo is 10-0-0 since going down to Laval, and his numbers are stellar. How do you explain this? I just don't know how you go from how bad he was to being unstoppable with no in-between. We understand the concept of a tweener goalie, but you so rarely see this with goalies. And Cayden Primo, if you take a look at his numbers on the 24-25 campaign, yeah, he sucked with the Montreal Canadiens, an .836 save percentage, but with Laval, he's at a .923 and a .196 goals against in 10 games. That's ridiculously good. And so the question could be posed as to whether or not the Montreal Canadiens have, let's just say, more to gain by sending Dobeš down, putting him back in a winning environment in Laval, and calling up Cayden Primo, who, for all intents and purposes, has earned a spot back with the Montreal Canadiens. He has earned the right to play in the National Hockey League again. He was so good with Laval ever since stepping foot down in the American Hockey League again that you kind of have to wonder, okay, if Dobeš is, let's just say, put in a more tough spot mentally because he's manning the crease for this terrible team that isn't really doing much to help him out, is it better for Dobeš's development for him to be down there in the AHL, and is it better for Primo's career to give him an NHL opportunity once more? Even if Primo stinks it up in the NHL again upon getting called up, you still have the benefit of the doubt saying, hey, he was really good in Laval. This really might just be a symptom of the Montreal Canadiens in front of him being all too bad. So there is some extra food for thought there that I wanted to dive into. Furthermore, we had some extra commentary from one Pierre LeBrun earlier this morning that I thought was actually interesting to dive into too. Take a look at this tweet that LeBrun posted about the Canadiens and their signing situation. As discussed at intermission during our Habs TSN broadcast, my understanding is that Jake Evans and the Canadiens have exchanged numbers on what an extension might look like, and they're not close. Obviously, things can change with one phone call, big cliche, but as of right now, that makes it more likely that Evans gets dealt before the March 7th trade deadline. Calls from teams asking about Evans have increased lately, with the Habs sliding in the standings. So, with this in mind, we have ourselves the update on Evans. It turns out that him and the Montreal Canadiens, they are far apart on contract numbers, and with the Montreal Canadiens slipping down the standings, a lot of teams are going out there and calling more about this guy. And at this point, you have to really start figuring it out, maybe internalizing it to yourself. If you wanted to see the Canadiens re-sign Jake Evans, it's looking more likely that this guy does get traded. There is no way in hell the Montreal Canadiens would have anything to gain by keeping Evans unsigned up until the end of the season and losing him out for nothing. Even if the guy wants to stay in Montreal, even if you like the player as well, even if at some point you're willing to say, okay, screw it, we'll just go to the dollar amount that you want, you have opportunities here if you're Kent Hughes to give more assets to this team by trading Evans away. If you really want to bring him back, just do the Antoine Vermette, send him off somewhere and allow him to come back in free agency. You know what they say, right? If you really love someone, let him go. Because if they come back to you, that means that the love is real. But for now, unless the Canadiens agree on an extension, it does not seem like Jake Evans is going to stick around with the Habs. They also are playing so poorly right now, so there's no reason to keep him around for a quote-unquote playoff push. We'll see if Kent Hughes is able to get more than a second or a third. If there's a team that's offering a first, it's probably likely that Kent Hughes goes out there and accepts that, because any sort of a late first-round pick will be helpful for this team. And finally, to end off this video, I wanted to go over to a video clip posted on BPM Sports Talk Radio, where you had Eric Bélanger talking about another potential Canadiens contract signee. This was from earlier last week on BPM, and I'll also leave a link in the description to a HabsFanatics.com piece which goes out there and transcribes the comments. During an appearance on BPM Sports, Eric Bélanger stated that he could definitely see Nick Ehlers joining the Montreal Canadiens as a free agent next summer. If the price and term makes sense, I think he could be a great addition to bring speed and grit. He's a player who could fit on a second or third line when the Canadiens reach their peak. He has 500 points in 647 games and is heading towards his 6th season with 25 or more goals. I like that he has some grit, and I also like that he's a player that you can use in all situations. Now, this commentary on Nick Ehlers does not go over anything regarding Patrik Laine, whom we had already spoken about in a video earlier this week debating whether or not he could get bought out this summer. Laine has been really bad as of late, and the night and day difference, the inconsistencies between when Laine is on his game and he's scoring goals every single night and he's getting shots on the power play through, versus what we're seeing lately where he's a minus in every single game and he's not getting his opportunities and he's not handling the puck well and he's fumbling it, etc., etc. Patrik Laine is really close friends with Ehlers, and we've known this for a few years now. So, separate from the idea that Laine could entice his buddy to come over and play for the Habs too, Ehlers would just be a very good addition to this Montreal Canadiens lineup whether or not you have Patrik Laine on this team too. It's just a question of whether or not Ehlers would want to come to Montreal, if he'd be willing to accept a team that might be able to pay him some more money than these other teams, but whose track to success isn't in the immediate short-term future. I don't want to discount what Ivan Demidov and everybody else could bring for this team, but we still gotta wait a few years, I feel, before Juraj Slafkovsky is fully the best that he can be, and before Ivan Demidov is fully comfortable in the league, and when Lane Hudson is past this kind of up and down season he has had, where he's looked really good at some points, but at other points it's like, oh yeah, he's definitely tired. He's never played an 82-game NHL season before, so he needs to get the conditioning up there too. There are a lot of growing pains with the Montreal Canadiens, and my question to you is, do you think Nick Ehlers would be interested in growing alongside those pains with the Canadiens, or do you think it's more likely that he rather goes over to another team that's maybe a lot more in a contention window and that maybe pays him a little bit less or something like that? What do you think is more likely? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of Ehlers signing with the Habs. What are your thoughts on Jake Evans re-signing or getting traded? It seems like there is going to be a trade sometime soon, but that's just me. Also, thoughts on the Canadiens sending down Jakub Dobeš and the game today against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Lots to talk about in Habs land, but still a lot of lower engagement because the team has been really, really bad lately. So, thoughts in the comment section for those who are here. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.